Hi there, and welcome to the C10 podcast, where we mainly talk about leadership and mentoring in 10 questions with changemakers, mostly with ties to the Kansas City area. This is all part of the C of the Major Leagues Foundation, and specifically a tie-in to our C10 mentoring and leadership program. I'm Matt Folks, Executive Director of C of the Major Leagues, and usual host of this podcast. I'm honored that you've chosen to listen this week. Thank you so much. Now, let's get into this week's conversation. This is episode 144 of the C10 podcast, and we're going to be chatting with Karli Ritter, a meteorologist here in Kansas City. That's coming up in just a couple moments. First, though, welcome to our first episode of 2024. I hope you had an awesome holiday season and are having a great start to the new year. As we start this new year, I want to thank a couple of you and let you know of an upcoming tweak to this podcast. First off, a shout out and a thank you to two listeners, Matt and Larry. You know, sometimes when you do a podcast or host a radio show or even write a book, you can question whether anyone is paying attention, whether they're listening. Are they reading the book? Yeah, they might be buying it, but are they actually reading it? Are they learning something from it? Literally within about a 26-hour span this week, Tuesday and Wednesday, I got a couple awesome comments from listeners Matt and Larry. First was an email from Matt on Tuesday telling me how much he enjoys listening and how he listens every week. And then I ran into Larry on Wednesday night, and he told me how much he learns by listening to the C10 podcast and just how much he enjoys it. And it was just genuine enthusiasm. And it was so cool from my standpoint to read Matt's comments and then see Larry's enthusiasm on Wednesday. So Matt and Larry, thank you for that. Now, do me a favor, not just Matt and Larry, but you too. And we don't ask this much anymore. We used to at the beginning, but if you like this podcast, would you please share our social posts about the episodes and then review it on your favorite podcast platform? That'd mean a ton. To me, it'd be a huge favor for our future success. And so thank you for doing that. Okay, that's that. The second part of this is a tweak to our schedule here in 2024. As I've mentioned before, when we first developed this podcast in early 2020, the idea was that we'd drop new episodes every other week, with one being an interview that we did at a C10 session, and the other would be a local business leader or mentor from our C10 mentoring leadership program. Well, when COVID stay-at-home orders hit and everyone was doing more on Zoom, we started doing weekly episodes. It was easy. Everybody was on Zoom. People were staying home, yada, yada. Well, then in 2022, we went back to twice a month. And then about this time last year, we went back to weekly. Well, as we do more this year to grow C with the Major Leagues, and especially things we're doing with the C10 program, which means I'm going to be focused more on fundraising and developing a new aspect of C10, we've decided that, for the time being, we're going to go back to twice a month. Now, occasionally, we might throw in a new episode or something special during the off week. For the most part, though, we're going to just drop new content at the end of every other week. I hope you're cool with that. And shamelessly, I will say that if you want to learn more about the C10 mentoring program or how you can become a donor, click on the link in this week's show notes. Now, on to this week's episode. This interview with Fox4's Karli Ritter was recorded in November in front of our students and mentors at Music Theater Heritage inside Crown Center here in Kansas City. As is typically the case, we've removed the students and mentors' questions at the end, although, they were so good that, who knows, maybe one of our off-week episodes would be the Q&A that we did with Karli. We'll see, but I digress. This was a really fun interview that we're going to pick up right here with me introducing Karli that night at MTH. I hope you enjoy it. Karli Ritter's been a meteorologist with Fox4 since March 2007. She's currently on the morning broadcast, so we do thank her for staying up past her bedtime, I'm guessing, here tonight. She got her start as a student at Florida State University and worked in Sarasota, Florida, Montgomery, Alabama, before moving to Kansas City. She enjoys traveling, cooking, yoga, spending time on a boat, and playing or watching any sport. And she's involved with several nonprofits, including she's been at our first two See You at Topgolf events. And it was after the one a year ago, September of last year. On her way out, she stopped me and she said, "Hey, Matt, if I want to come and see a C10 session, I want to be around the students more and the mentors. If there's anything I can do, let me know." And I said, I think we might be able to try to get you as a guest at some point. And then we talked about it again in May, and here she is tonight. So we're so excited for that. So with that, let's please welcome Karli Ritter.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Really happy to be here tonight.
Okay, so we like to start these, Karli, with what we call pregame batting practice, just a chance to get to know you a little better.
Okay.
Here we go. Question number one. My hero growing up was?
Ooh, my hero growing up? Probably someone on the Weather Channel, because I watched it all the time and I thought they were so cool and doing exactly what I wanted to do, which was talk about the weather, track hurricanes, track tornadoes. So I had a watch that I would set an alarm for 50 past the hour growing up in Florida because the tropical update would come on. Y'all, I was a nerd growing up. I still am, and I embrace my nerdiness for weather. But I would literally set an alarm and check the tropical update. I'd stop what I was doing. I'd be playing with friends in the summer. I'm like, hold on, I'll be right back. I'd write down the coordinates for wherever the storms were, and then I'd go to my little map and plot it out. So
did you really?
I really did. And I still have a dry erase map that I use today at work tracking hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean.
Has there ever been a Hurricane Karli by chance?
No, a Carl with a K.
Okay.
No Karli.
No Karli.
I should petition.
Sure. And I've thought about it. I don't know if that'd be a good thing or a bad thing.
It depends.
Yeah. All right, question number two. My favorite thing about Kansas City is?
Oh, man. This is a tough one. So I'm not from here. I don't know if y'all know that. I'm from Florida, born and raised. So when I moved here, I had no knowledge of this city. I did not know anything about it. I moved here in 2007, and it was very different, by the way, in 2007. Not in a bad way, it's just different. I love this city and the pride that everyone has in their city. I really think we're the only city who wears their own t-shirts that say like Heart Kansas City on it. We all look like a bunch of tourists walking around, and I love it. I love the pride. Everyone has Kansas City on all their shirts, and everywhere you travel, you always see someone wearing it when you're traveling, going home, in the airport, random cities. I always run into someone from Kansas City, and I think everyone being so proud of being from here, I just love that hometown pride.
I saw somebody post that on Twitter recently that this might be the only airport where you walk in and you don't know who the tourists are.
Right.
Traveling.
Right.
Who's from
It's
Kansas
true.
City.
It's
exactly.
true. In fact, I think the tourists are the ones who don't have their shirts on. Right. So, yeah.
All right, question number three. The thing that motivates me to wake up every morning is?
Man. Well, it depends. Some days I have a 2 a.m. alarm, so there's a lot of motivation needed on those days. I love my job, so it doesn't take a lot for me to have to get up. If you have to get up at 2 a.m. every single day for your career, you better love what you do and you better enjoy the people you work with. And I can truthfully say I do love my job and I love my teammates. And they're teammates. So what motivates me is to get up and make sure I'm a good teammate for them every day.
So when you have to get up at 2 a.m., what time do you go to bed?
Oh, man. It's not every day I get up at 2 anymore, so my body's not conditioned. Back in the day when I'd get up at 2 a.m. 5 days a week, I'd go to bed by 7:30 or 8 at the absolute latest. Sometimes 6:30, but now it's probably 9 or 10, and I pay for it the next day.
Well, we've tried to get Taylor Hemness out. And last year at Topgolf.
Same.
Yeah.
He gets up super early, too.
Yeah, he's up about 2:30 or so, and he said, well, I can't really do these interviews because
it's rough sometimes, but you power through. Tomorrow's what, Thursday? Thursday and Fridays are easy days. You're on the backslide towards the weekend. Take a couple naps, you can get through it.
Nice. Yeah. Very good. All right, question number 4. If I could meet one person in history, it would be?
Oh, man. That is a really tough one. You've got some good questions tonight. Oh, man. I don't know. You've stumped me on that.
Really?
Hold on. Let me think about that one. I don't want to pause too long because rapid fire. Could we pass and come back to that?
That's question number 4 out of 4.
Oh,
so.
Okay.
We could. We can go on and we can come back to that.
Let's come back to it. Could we come back? Okay,
sure.
Let's come back to that. I'll subconsciously.
It's our show here. We can do whatever we want.
I love that. Let me come back to that one.
All right, so let's go back just a couple years.
Okay.
Tell me about 17-year-old Karli Ritter.
17-year-old me. I was obsessed with the weather. I was the weather girl in high school. I was driving at that point, and I played basketball. Basketball was my life. I played competitively outside of high school. I played varsity, I think all 4 years in high school. I wanted to go on and play in college, but I also was kind of torn because I wanted to follow my career in meteorology. And there weren't a lot of schools that were bigger schools that were interested that I could go play at, but also parlay my career at the same time. Right. So I made a choice. Obviously, I wasn't going to go and do this professionally, and I was very aware of that. So I decided to focus more on my studies. But 17-year-old me was completely obsessed with basketball and literally only that. My life revolved around playing basketball. I played it year round, 24/7. I was outside practicing if I wasn't playing with my team. Tournaments, everything.
So just out of curiosity, where do you think you might have gone had you gone to basketball?
Oh, I didn't.
You didn't have it like a small school you wanted to go to?
I stopped thinking once I realized I was not D1 material. I'm very short. I was a 1 for anyone interested. Yeah, that was about the only position I could hang at. So
that's all right.
yeah.
So why did you end up, I think we know the answer to this, but why did you end up going to Florida State?
Well, actually, it's really funny. I looked at a bunch of different other schools for meteorology. I looked at Penn State, but they are more winter weather driven. I looked at Oklahoma because they're an excellent severe weather school. Florida State is actually the #1 meteorology school for tropical meteorology specifically. And this is a really random fun story that most people don't know. I did not go to school to be in television. I actually went to school to be a hurricane hunter.
Oh.
So I wanted to be the person who flew into the hurricane. I didn't want to be, actually looked at the Air Force initially because I thought I could pilot and fly into these hurricanes. And then I realized no, because then I can't look around. I'm focused solely on being a pilot. So I kind of pivoted, looked at Florida State because I knew I could study meteorology in the Air Force, but I wanted to actually be the scientist who was dropping the drop sounds into the eye of the hurricane. So I went to school first 2.5, almost 3 years studying strictly tropical meteorology. Wanted to be a hurricane hunter, was working towards that goal of mine. And I had to fulfill a speech requirement for the university. And instead of talking to 500 kids about random topics, I found out I could talk about the weather and get credit for my degree, but also fulfill my speech requirement for the university, and took a weather casting class in a basement of my meteorology building. We had a green screen half the size of this wall behind me. And we had a student-run show that was broadcast live on cable television. Took that and ended up loving it because I could literally talk about the weather every day. I could forecast. I could still track hurricanes. And turns out they take guests on the hurricane hunter planes sometimes. So I knew there was a chance I could always maybe get on a plane, right? So I pivoted my career at options at that point. I was junior year, spring of my junior year, and started interning at a TV station in Tallahassee. That summer before my senior year, I interned in Orlando, Florida, close to my hometown, at a station. Got up at 2 a.m. on the summer before my senior year of college for an entire summer and went and interned under the morning meteorologist there. And I'm like, all right, this is my job. This is what I want to do. I get to talk about the weather. I can track hurricanes. I can forecast. This is it. So that's how it all kind of came to be. And that's why I chose Florida State, because strictly for tropical, and then I ended up not doing it. So, which I think is a lot of what people in college find they end up doing. They go for one thing and they pivot, right?
Oh yeah. So many questions are coming from this.
Shoot, let's go.
Did you get a chance? Have you had a chance to fly on a plane in a hurricane?
The short answer is no, and the reason why, I started my career in Florida. So my first job out of college, I worked in Sarasota, which is on the West Coast, and it was, prior to a couple years ago, the busiest hurricane season on record. So we went through the entire alphabet, and then we went into the Greek alphabet. And I actually, that year was Katrina. I covered Katrina because it actually crossed over Florida before it went into the Gulf and ultimately New Orleans. I covered Hurricane Wilma, where I went to work on a Saturday and came home on a Monday. Because y'all know when we have tornado warnings, we break into broadcasts and we wall-to-wall cover the storms. When there's a hurricane warning, it's the same thing, but hurricane warnings can last hours or days. And this was a slow-moving hurricane. So I never got to go when there was anything threatening us because I actually had to be at work. And then my second job in Alabama, we were just far enough inland that we still could get effects of the hurricane. So every time there was a hurricane there, my bosses are like, we need you at work, not flying in a storm. So now, my current boss is from Florida, worked in Orlando. So I'm trying to finagle a way that I can convince him it's worthy of a story. I don't know if it ever fly, but a landlocked state in a hurricane story doesn't really mesh right now, but you never know.
Be kind of fun, though.
Bucket list, right?
So what is it about hurricanes, though?
So growing up in Florida, I want to say it was 1999, Hurricane Floyd was a Category 5 monster hurricane coming right at the East Coast. And our family evacuated. I was 18 miles inland, but this was a 155 mile per hour wind-driven storm, and my parents were like, we're out of here. So we evacuated, and honestly, my interest had peaked a little bit before that because we've had brushes with tropical storms or hurricanes, but it truly just stemmed from personal experience. I feel like a lot of people here remember a really vivid tornado or winter storm when they have them, right? And especially it's usually one storm that piques someone's interest. But for me, it was just repeated hurricanes in the summer. And then I would track them, but also we'd have thunderstorms every day. And sometimes we'd get hail, or sometimes we'd have a quick spin up. I just was fascinated by it. And we had water spouts, which are tornadoes on water. And I thought those were really cool. Again, let me get my nerdy little, but I don't know. It intrigued me. I didn't know why things happened the way they did, and I wanted to know why. So I just kind of immersed myself in that.
Do tornadoes fascinate you the same way hurricanes do?
Absolutely. I do not like the outcome of a tornado. I don't like to see communities devastated. I don't like to see loss of life. But if you were to say, what is your favorite weather event to cover, it would absolutely hands down be severe weather, because you're on it. You have to be on point, focused. You're tracking it. You're getting the information out there. There's nothing like it in real time when you have a tornado on the ground and you're trying to, stay level-headed, present in the moment, but also passing along pertinent information that people at home watching need to use to save their own lives. I'm not saving their lives. I'm just telling them where the storm is.
Yep, even though you're interrupting our favorite shows sometimes.
So sorry.
I'm just throwing that out there.
I mean,
and it's 150 miles away, but whatever.
I will say to that, I will say this.
I just had to throw it out.
No, you're fine. And I will say this, because it is nobody's life is more or less important.
Right.
I don't care if you're a town of 5 people or 500,000 people. If there is a tornado coming at you and your life is in danger, we are going to take the necessary precautions to make sure they are safe.
Very good.
So that's what I always say. I'm like, listen, we'll rerun whatever show it is.
What was the Chiefs game?
I think one happened. I think maybe was it last year? Maybe one.
I have to be honest with you. There are times where we're like going through these scenarios in our heads. We're like, all right, let's rewind a few years. Do y'all remember American Idol when it was really popular and David Cook from Blue Springs was on it? That was in May. We had a severe weather event coming and we were like, what if? Oh no. I mean, we went through all the scenarios. We're like, if there's a tornado warning and we have to cut in and it's the winner of American Idol is... And then it's like, beep, beep, beep. I'm like, y'all, we're going to catch a lot of flack for this. So we have to think about this. So we have contingency plans in place and we think about these things. Every situation, every scenario is a little different. If it is a confirmed tornado on the ground, though, I'm sorry, but your programming is going to be blown out. Someone's life is in danger.
This is J.R. Buckner, President and CEO of First Federal Bank of Kansas City. We hope you're enjoying this week's conversation. For this week's Student Spotlight, I'd like you to meet one of the students in our C10 Mentoring and Leadership Program.
My name is Taryn Lester and I go to Raytown South, and C10 is making an impact on my life by improving my communication skills and making me more able to speak in front of groups of people.
First Federal Bank of Kansas City is proud to make a donation this week to the Post-High School Scholarship Fund for seniors in the C10 Mentoring and Leadership Program. If you'd like to join us in this effort to give our future leaders an opportunity after high school, please click on the link in the show's notes. Now back to this week's conversation.
What drew you just overall to science and weather? I mean, were you always a science, math type person?
Well, my dad was a pharmacist. My mom was a dental hygienist. Nobody has television experience. No one's really weather driven. I'm the first one in my family to do that. My dad actually was really intrigued in pharmacy, and I kind of thought I'd go to school to do that for a long time. But then it's the thunderstorms, tracking them every day. My uncle and I would sit on his truck and watch the afternoon thunderstorms, and some hail would fall. And I'm like, that's so cool. Why'd that happen? So really it just was sparked from a young age when I saw that water spout. I think I was in 4th or 5th grade, and I just was hooked after that. And it almost, I don't want to say it was an obsession, but it was pretty close, because I was like, let's go to the library. Let's get these books. Let's watch the weather. Let's put on the Weather Channel. It became a fascination for me. Yeah.
So you've seen a water spout then?
Multiple. I've been out fishing and we're offshore and I'm looking back to shore and I'm like, oh, there's 3 water spouts lined up. And I'm like, we got to go through that to get back home. So you kind of have to go around, these storms. But yeah, I've seen multiple water spouts and I've seen a few tornadoes since I moved here, which has been fun because I did storm chase when I first moved here back in the day. That was fun. And that is, when I saw my first tornado, I was like, all right, I'm good now. We're good. We can check mark all the meteorology needs to do type of things,
So you mentioned you started in Sarasota and then went to Montgomery, Alabama, and then Kansas City. What brought you to the Midwest and Kansas City?
All right, y'all ready for this story? My first job, I was fired on a Monday on my lunch break.
Oh, wow.
Who gets fired on a Monday? So I did not have a job, and I did not have a tape, and I had no material. And so my best girlfriend at the time, who I worked with, who also was eventually fired. I was the first of about 6 or 7 people fired. New management came in, as nature of TV. She put together a tape for me with about 3 days worth of material. So then I was like, all right, let's find a job, and ended up in Montgomery. Montgomery and I did not gel very well. It was a city that is very lovely now, but at the time it just was not a place for me to be. Management, teammates, it just wasn't a good spot for me, and I knew that. So I actually was thinking about moving on, and then I actually got an email from Kansas City saying, hey, are you available? Are you interested? And I said, give me about a month for contract stuff, and then let's go. And came and interviewed here. I interviewed in another city as well at the same time, same week. And yeah, got a job offer in both places. That place was for weekends. This place was, Kansas City was weekdays. And I had been working weekends at the time. I'm like, well, I want to work weekdays. And also when I flew into this city, I'm from a very small town. So when I flew in and I'm driving, someone picked me up at the airport, which I'm like, whoa, that's cool. Never had that happen before. Again, small town girl. And then I'm driving up and I see the city skyline. I'm coming in, from the Northland from the airport. And I immediately called my mom and I was like, I am in big trouble. And she's like, what? And I go, I am not supposed to be here. This is a huge city. I am out of my league. I am in over my head. What am I doing here? This is so not good. I'm so nervous for this interview. But, got the job and came here. But it truly was not something I was seeking out. It just kind of happened, which I think everything happens for a reason,
Yeah.
So
that was March of 07.
Correct.
So that's my
long
math
time.
isn't great, but that's almost 17 years.
17 years in March I'll have been here.
Could you ever have imagined that you would stay here 5, 10 years, let alone 17?
No. In fact, because of the firing and because of the other previous bad job, I moved 3 times in 3 years. And I was just fully set on, I'm going to be here, I'm going to do a 2-year contract, and then I'm going to move on. But when I got here, like I said, I love this city. I loved everything it offered. I feel like it has a small town vibe, but a big city perk, right? You get the sports teams, you get the arts and the food scene and the entertainment scene, but you don't have all the traffic. Mm-hmm. And I feel like everyone here is very nice. I'm from the South, and everyone says Southern hospitality, and it's very true. But there's something about Midwest nice that is just, it really rubbed off on me immediately. I loved it. And I love it here. And so I after 2 years, I had a great team, a great weather team. I had great management. I just didn't want to leave, Yeah.
So for me, I went to school in the South. So going from the Midwest to the South was a little bit of a culture shock.
Right.
Was there a culture shock in reverse for you coming to the Midwest?
Very much so. Where I grew up is a small town, a lot of Southern influence. Montgomery is very much in the South. And very Southern, and football is life there. Auburn and Alabama, all the things. And so, moving here, it was just a little bit of a different vibe. It was just very different actually, and in a very refreshing, enjoyable way. It was just nice to see a new lens on life, truly, and the way people approach things here and their philosophy towards a lot of things. It was just very. I loved it. I appreciated it, the new outlook on things very much.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm going to read this next question because...
I'll take a sip of water for this one.
Yeah. Because I'm reluctant to ask you about this, and Max, forgive me for reading this question, but I think we should at least touch on it, because in 2011, your predecessor in the morning, Don Harmon, died unexpectedly. And for anybody who knew him, particularly outside, I had met him several times, but it was a complete shock. I think some people who knew him well, it wasn't as shocking, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. But how did that affect you, both personally and professionally?
That was a hard one for me. It was my first funeral ever. So that was a big shock for me. And personally for that, I felt for his family. Personally for me, I immediately, when I found out, the next day had to come to work and do his job. And he was very beloved in this city. And I was very nervous about that. So I didn't really get time to grieve because I immediately was thrust into doing 2 people's jobs, the next day. And that's no fault to anybody. It's just how it worked out. So personally, it was very difficult for me to wrap my head around. I was younger, unexpected, as you mentioned. So, and just for his family and just we're a very tight-knit group on the morning show. So it rocked us. And then professionally, it changed the trajectory of my career because I immediately then started doing his job and my job, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be doing his job or if I was still going to be leaving. And there was all this kind of wiggle room, and for that, not knowing what was going to happen next. And so a lot of uncertainty, a lot of sadness. And then ultimately, I think it was 10 months went by because we didn't even start looking for a while for a replacement for our weather team. And then when we finally did, by the time we finally got a new member, it was almost 10 months. So it had been almost an entire year of doing his job and my job. So that was exhausting after a while, getting up at 2 a.m. and cranking out. And the team worked together, but ultimately, professionally, it changed my career because I went from being midday or 9 and noon to now being on the morning show. I wish he was here, we all do. Yeah. But I think he would be very proud of our team and how we've springboarded back from everything and continued to keep his legacy alive, but also making sure we're all doing the best we can, moving forward.
Did that change the way you see people and circumstances at all?
That was one event. There are a couple events in my career that for sure changed my outlook on how I approach life, I approach my job, for sure. I mean, if anyone says that doesn't impact them, I don't think they're telling the truth, So that was a definite growing up moment for me, if you will, because I was young, I was in my 20s, and it was a definite, okay, time to grow up moment,
Was there a part of you when they're finally saying, okay, Karli, we want you to take the morning job, mm-hmm. Was there a part of you that was reluctant at all, or did you say, all right, I've been doing it for 10 months, let's go?
I think given the situation and how things played out with everything from day one to then, I think that our viewers were we have a really interesting relationship with our viewers because of what happened. We're not just their people they rely on for news or weather. They truly feel like we are part of their family because they grieved with us. They went through it with us. This all happened on live television. I don't know about y'all, but there are a lot of things that happen in our lives that nobody wants to deal with in the public eye, and we had no choice. We had to deal with the entire situation from start to finish in the public eye. And I think that while that is very, very, very difficult for all of us to have dealt with, it endeared us with our viewers and allowed them to see us as human beings, because there were moments we cried on TV. It was you just couldn't control your emotions, especially when it was raw in the first couple days. I think it allowed our viewers to see us in a different way, not just people they watch on TV. They truly felt like they could relate to us. They saw us have emotion. They saw us work to rally around each other as a team and a family. And I think that has really catapulted us into a different level than maybe another station, not here necessarily in town, because I think Kansas City is a unique TV market, but around the country, very few markets would have what we have with our viewers because of what happened. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think that allowed them to see us as human beings instead of just someone that they watch on television. Right.
And again, it was stunning in so many ways. But as we watch our newscasts, I mean, you develop a quote unquote viewer anchor relationship.
Guys, the emails I get sometimes and the things people remember, it's mind-blowing to me. They're like, we remember when you said this 6 months ago. I'm like, what? I don't remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday. But they really pay attention, and they're loyal to us. And it's a beautiful thing. We're very fortunate. We are the #1 station in town, and people watch us. Maybe it's because we're a train wreck sometimes. I don't know. There are mornings I'm like, how do I still have a job? I'm sorry, bosses, but there are things it's live television. I mean, there are moments, but we're so comfortable with each other. There are times I think we're just kind of interacting more as friends or family than stuffy newscasters or meteorologists. And I think that comes across on air.
Yeah. Definitely. All right, so we have 10 C words, and our November word is care.
Care, okay.
which in our leadership vernacular means someone who puts others first, evaluates everyone honestly, and understands everyone's impact. How does care in your leadership television world, how does that look to you?
I've always grown up where we give back. I remember going with my parents and volunteering, kind of how you were talking about the Thanksgiving dinner. If you need something, please keep it, but if you know someone you can bless with. We worked hard as our family, worked hard growing up, but we also gave back to the community when we could. And I remember going and volunteering at a domestic abuse shelter and helping out with my mom with that. And they had a clothing store for these families to come and shop when they needed to relocate. And it was the Village Store. I remember the name of it. And I remember going there and helping tagging clothes. And I was young, but my parents instilled that in me in a young age, that you give back to the community, you volunteer when you can, you do what you can to help others. And I think that has continued to stay with me. And it's not just me, it's our station as a whole. We are very big on volunteering in the community and giving back when we can. So I do have some charities that I'm very close with and want to make sure I'm a part of. Also organizations that I want to help with if I can, in big or small ways. And so I think that if you're given a position where you are in the public eye, if you can utilize that and parlay that into garnering attention. I mean, just for example, Life 88.5, the radio station in town, I do weather for them. And they had a big food drive, and I knew it was coming up, and I'm like, all right, let me talk about it on air, tell me where you're gonna be, this, that, and the other. We just found out, and it's not because of me, but we just got a little extra word out. We just found out that in a small town, Richmond, Missouri, which is about an hour east of here, they picked up 800 pounds of food in one day, yesterday, for Thanksgiving, to stock the pantry for this town and this community. And I just think that's so wonderful that people are willing to do that out of the goodness of their heart. And if I can help facilitate that, or if I can help be there to donate, or if I can help be there to load up stuff, like I want to do that any way I can, because it just, giving back is so important.
So kind of along those lines, as we come down toward the end here, I mentioned you've been a part of CEO Topgolf for 2 years, or the first two. And by the way, next year's, I will use this as a shameless plug, May 23rd.
Okay, I don't have my phone. I'm going to write it down.
5/23/24.
Oh, okay. I'll remember that.
And I'm sure we'll contact you, too.
Yes, I would love to be there.
Just a wild guess. But again, you told me that night, the very first time, you said, hey, I want to be around these students more, I want to be around the mentors more. What do you remember about those first two Topgolf events that you've enjoyed, and why did you want to come and spend some time with them?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't have anything like that growing up. And another organization I'm a big part of is Girls on the Run, and it's another organization that helps mentor younger girls. And I love that you are doing things with the youth of our community, because y'all are our future. And I want to invest in my future and my kids' future and my community's future. And if I can be a little tiny small part of that, if I'm just there one day to help somebody out with something and that helps catapult them to the next step or the next level, like that's all that matters to me. I'm getting a lot more out of it than I think people realize, because it's just fun to see y'all thrive, and seeing some familiar faces year to year now, you know, I just think it's really special. And to have that, and we did not have something like this where I grew up, and there are not a lot of organizations like this. And so I think it's really special to help our youth in the community, because they're our future, you know?
Oh, exactly. And that's hopefully what the students see, that we're trying to prepare them for that next level.
Having that guidance that a lot of people don't get, I think is really special and meaningful, and it's necessary, you know? You think, we always think we all have it figured out, right? And then you're like, oh, I could use that advice. Yes, thank you.
Well, and especially at 15 to 18, we think we have it all figured out.
Did I mention 17-year-old me had it all figured out?
Yeah. All right, so you mentioned 17-year-old you. If you could go back today, what would you tell her?
Oh, man. Well, everything happens for a reason. And I swear to you, it will all work out. And if you don't understand why in the moment, I promise you, it may take a day, it may take a month, it may take a year, it may take 10 years. And all of a sudden one day you're going to go, aha, okay, now it makes sense, because whatever happened to you then, good or bad, is going to set you up for the next level of your life and the next step and the next phase. And so everything, good or bad, is going to prepare you for that next step or the next level. And in the moment, it can feel so suffocating, right? There are things that happened when I was 17 that were just devastating, for me.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, it built character. It toughened up my skin. It gave me thicker skin. It prepared me for whatever the next thing was. And I'm very grateful for those good and bad experiences because it just sets you up for that next stage of your life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we'll end this with our final pregame batting practice question.
Oh, no.
If you could go back and, not if you could
I
go
was
back.
hoping you forgot.
No, so question number 4 was,
Come on, Matt.
if you could meet one person in history, who would it be?
Gosh, that is so tough.
You have a couple?
I mean, part of me wants to meet like the founding fathers and just be like, what? This is so wild to me. Like, walk me through all of it. I just think it'd be so fun historically. I don't know. I just think that'd be really fun. I feel like there's got to be somebody weather related that I would just love to pick their brain. Like, how did you? And then honestly, now that I say that scientist wise, I just want to know like the Albert Einsteins, the Bells, like how do you come up with these ideas? I just want to sit there and listen and watch and watch how their brains work and the wheels turning and just kind of be a fly on the wall and just hear their philosophy and their thought process, because I think it's so fascinating problem solving, how people approach the same exact problem, different ways. I just think that'd be really fun. Some kind of scientist or maybe the founders of our country, just to see like, that's wild to me.
See, with that, you go from not having anybody to having like 5 or 6.
There you go. And I'm going to get in my car and go, okay, now I know.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Exactly. Well, hey, thank you so much. Let's thank Karli Ritter
Thank
for joining
y'all.
us tonight. Well, that does it for this episode of the C10 Mentoring and Leadership Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, we hope that you'll leave a favorable review on your favorite podcast platform. If you didn't enjoy it, or you have other comments or suggestions for potential guests, you can click on the comment link in the show's notes. We drop a new episode at the end of every week, but be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an interview. And if you or your company would like to help underwrite this podcast, let me know. Until next time, this is Matt Folks for the See You in the Major Leagues Foundation saying be safe and take care.